Trump ready to arm Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, but plans to speak with Putin first. We'll talk about this with political analyst, European Leadership Network, UK member Alexandra Filippenko. Alexandra, glad to see you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Alexandra, US President Donald Trump expressed confidence that the war in the Gaza Strip is over and that the ceasefire agreements between Israel and Hamas will be upheld, according to CNN. Quote, "I think so. I think it's going to hold. The war is over. The war is over. You understand that?" Trump told reporters. He added that there are many reasons he believes the agreement will hold, in particular because people are tired of the conflict. In your opinion, what is really happening on the ground in Gaza, and does the situation reflect Trump's claim that the war is over?
Well, it's very hard to say because there are many moving parts as of now. And right now, I'm looking at the Knesset, and right now, President Trump is expected to speak in Knesset, in the Israeli parliament in Jerusalem. They've already arrived, and the whole American team, including, of course, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and Marco Rubio and President Trump. They are already there, and President Trump is about to speak. And of course, today is a day of celebration when people who are held hostage for more than 2 years now are returning home, but also a day of thinking about the future, what the future holds. Nobody knows how will the situation unfold, because right now we're seeing that Hamas is coming back to those territories that Israel left from and the army is moving to those borders that were let's say, agreed to by the Israeli side, or we can also say those borders that were demanded by President Trump, the borders that he sees necessary. And right now we are seeing Hamas returning to their positions also. So it is very hard to say whether the war is actually over or it's just a pause in what has been happening for many years now. And right now, of course, many things are moving, and a lot will depend on the actors in the Middle East. And right now we understand that Jared Kushner, the husband of Ivanka Trump, husband of President Trump's daughter, was playing, actually, as we now understand, a way bigger role than we actually saw. We all talked about Steve Witkoff, but apparently Jared Kushner played the key role in what is happening right now. And a lot will depend on him, because the doors for him are open in all Persian Gulf countries, because his Affinity Partners company is Affinity Partners, with many companies of the Persian Gulf, and there are big financial interests at play. So we understand we're talking about billions of dollars of investment into Jared Kushner's company from the Saudi Arabia funds, from Qatar funds, etc., etc. So these are the opportunities, the financial opportunities, as we now see for President Trump, and what we knew for a long time now, financial part or financial interests of different parties are of most interest for President Trump, and he sees financial relationships, economic relationships, as actual groundwork and actual stable, let's say, something stable, or the beginning of a broader peace deal in the Middle East. So those financial relations are there when we are talking about Jared Kushner and his company. So I think it's a bit too optimistic to say that the war in the Middle East is over, but this stage of the war is definitely over, with hostages coming home and the bodies of hostages who died in Hamas captivity also being brought back to Israel in the next coming hours, or maybe something in some cases days. But it's difficult to say what the future holds and how long will this peace hold in the Middle East. So President Trump being optimistic, but he is sure that today and tomorrow in Egypt, he will be able to secure a long-term peace agreement. And of course, as usual, for President Trump, for his view on the world, it all is based on financial interest.
Alexandra, Zelensky said he praised Trump for the success in Gaza. In response, the U.S. President told him he had hoped to stop Putin before a peace deal was reached in the Middle East. And Zelensky also highlighted the importance of the first phase of the Gaza peace plan, which included a ceasefire. He said it gives hope that the Russian regime could also be pressured into a ceasefire in Ukraine. What lessons, if any, can be drawn from the Gaza ceasefire and applied to the war in Ukraine?
We see now that the American administration can actually push and can actually be very persuasive when they have this idea, when they have a plan, when they have a vision. But I think what conclusions we can draw from what is happening right now with hostages coming back and with this, at least for now, a ceasefire in the Middle East, we understand that maybe not Steve Witkoff, but Jared Kushner played a bigger role. So maybe there is needed another figure, let's say, apart from Steve Witkoff, who had so many things on his plate and he wore so many hats, let's put it this way, that he could not concentrate solely, for example, on pressuring Russia. Maybe someone else is needed to talk to Putin. Maybe something else is needed to talk to Putin. And one of those things might be the long-range missiles, of course. And also, if we look at the recent tensions between the United States and China, we might say, I suppose, that China is, of course, one of the countries that might be pressured right now during those negotiations between China and the United States. But again, it's very difficult to predict. As of now, what we see, what conclusions we can draw, is that President Trump and his administration can really push hard if they want to and when they want to and when they feel that they must and when they feel that there is a real possibility. As of now, we haven't seen that much pressure from the Trump administration. We haven't seen that much pressure from President Trump on Vladimir Putin and on the Kremlin, but we might see it when President Trump's hands are not tied anymore in the Middle East, if the peace holds, if there is actually the second step in that long-term peace plan, if that second step is taken, then for President Trump, he will have way more time and way more opportunities to actually take care of what is happening in Europe, because these were his biggest goals regarding peacemaking and peace deals during his election campaign: the war in the Middle East and the war in Europe. He pledged to end them in 24 hours. And right now we're seeing, okay, in the first year, at least in first 10 months, we see the war in the Middle East, at least for now, coming to an end. And it's a great start. So maybe right now his hands would be untied to really talk about Europe and really pressure Russia more.
Alexandra, yes, President Donald Trump has said he is ready to send long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. However, he will likely speak with Kremlin dictator Vladimir Putin about it first, reports clash. The U.S. leader noted that supplying Tomahawk missiles would mark a new stage of escalation, so it is worth discussing the matter with Russia first. Trump believes Moscow does not want those missiles flying toward its territory. What message does it send to allies and adversaries alike when a U.S. president signals readiness to consult with the Kremlin before providing military aid to Ukraine?
I believe that this is not just a willingness to talk to Kremlin or to discuss it with the Kremlin or discuss it with Putin, but I believe that for President Trump, the reaction from the Kremlin was very subtle, because first Putin said that, the relations between Russia and the US will deteriorate if there are Tomahawk missiles that are sent to Ukraine. Then he said that, Russia will strengthen its capabilities to shoot down Tomahawk missiles if Tomahawk missiles are given to Ukraine. Nothing about nuclear weapons, no threats, nothing what we've heard, what we've been hearing throughout the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, throughout 22, 23, and 24, and year 25 also, in Russian propaganda, for example. So it feels like they don't even notice that. And for President Trump, I think he wants Russia to notice it. So I believe it is not about discussing, or it's not about negotiating with the Kremlin, but it's about, look what is happening. Now tell me, do you see what is happening? Do you see, do you hear me now? Do you see me now? So this is more of not a discussion to my mind. This doesn't look, or it doesn't seem like a discussion. To me, it seems more like this willingness of President Trump to really make Vladimir Putin answer to what is happening. Not just merely about, the relations will deteriorate. There are basically no relations right now between Moscow and Washington, or, we will strengthen our air defense. Well, yes, this might happen, but necessarily not because of Tomahawk missiles, but because of anything else. Yes, they might strengthen their air defense, but there is no actual reaction. What is going to happen? What is happening? So I think President Trump wants to hear from Putin what Putin thinks right now and what Putin feels right now, and how does he see what is happening? Does he see what is happening? Does he understand fully what is happening? And so I believe that President Trump, it's not about discussion. It's about really getting this reaction from Putin about what President Trump is about to do. And again, this is also kind of a pressure from President Trump. This might be seen, of course, are presented by Russian propaganda as a necessary discussion or a negotiation. No, it's not a discussion. It's not a negotiation. President Trump is just saying what he's about to do, and he wants them to know what he's about to do. So it's, I don't see it as a discussion. It's rather just a notice. Look, take notice of what is happening. Take notice of what I'm about to do. Maybe you want to stop right now. If not, I am doing this and that and that. And but also we should take into account the China situation, because President Trump is now will really be focused on China. So everything that's happening in Europe, and we need to realize that, we need to understand that, to really see what is happening. Everything that's happening in Europe right now is not that much of an interest for the American administration. China is way more interesting for the American administration right now. But this not a discussion, this call, if it's going to happen, or this, video meeting, if it's going to happen between President Trump and Putin, it's not about negotiating, or it's not about preliminary discussing something. It's just about a notice and getting a reaction from Moscow.
Alexandra, also, US President Donald Trump has suffered a significant personal setback, failing to secure the Nobel Peace Prize this year. Why was he denied the award this year? What would it take for Trump to win the prize in the future?
Well, this is coming back to your first question. Is it really peace in the Middle East? Will this peace stand for a year? We will see then. Of course, President Trump himself, when he was talking after the Nobel Peace Prize was already awarded to Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader of Venezuela, after that, he talked to the press in the White House, and he said that, of course, we all understand, said President Trump, that this is an award for year 2024. 2024, because all laureates were the end for the committee, let's say the last date for the committee to get any new potential laureates was on January 31st. So it ended actually in January. So they could not award this Nobel Peace Prize to anyone who became a potential laureate after January 31st. And President Trump became president. He was inaugurated only on January 20th, 2025. So President Trump himself understands that this was an award for year 24. And Maria Corina Machado is a brilliant choice of the Nobel Peace Committee, of course, if we are looking from the White House standpoint, because Maria Corina Machado represents something that President Trump is supporting. President Trump supports the fight of Venezuelan opposition to overthrow the dictatorship regime of Nicolas Maduro. President Trump supports it. Moreover, Marco Rubio, being the senator of Florida, he was the one who nominated Maria Corina Machado in spring 2024. He was the one who nominated her just before the election in Venezuela. So this support actually comes from the U.S. administration. The support for this Nobel Peace Prize, this might sound surprising, but it basically comes from the U.S. administration. And this is the reason why Maria Corina Machado, of course, said that she's accepting this award for the Venezuelan people. And on behalf, let's put it this way, or in the name of, as she said, of President Trump. Because President Trump is the one who is supporting Venezuelan opposition, who is talking about Venezuelan opposition. So right now, for President Trump to actually receive this Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 that is going to be awarded in 2026, of course, we might need to see peace in the Middle East actually hold for at least this year. And also, definitely, since President Trump has been talking about peace in Europe and peace in Ukraine, most probably, of course, the Nobel Peace Prize Committee would want to see also a ceasefire, at least a ceasefire, maybe not a peace deal, but at least a ceasefire in Ukraine. Because if we're talking about an opposition leader, of course, this is a symbol. She's a symbol. So she doesn't need to stop wars to actually receive a Nobel Peace Prize. But for one of the most powerful people in the world, the American president, of course, it takes way more to actually receive the Nobel Peace Prize, only because we cannot even compare the influence of the American president and of the opposition leader in Venezuela, who is an outlaw for the current regime, for the dictatorship regime. So for President Trump, of course, he needs to do so much more than anyone else, just because he's being the president of the United States, one of the most powerful people in the world.
Guys, share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your opinion. Alexandra, given that Russia remains a constant focus in our discussions as an ongoing threat, on Thursday, October 9th, a Russian submarine surfaced off the coast of France. In response to the incident, the alliance stated its readiness to defend itself. According to a post by NATO's Maritime Command on X, a French Navy frigate conducts surveillance of the alliance's maritime approaches, marking the presence of a Russian submarine operating on the surface of the coast of Brittany, the post said. What were the circumstances that led a Russian submarine to surface so close to NATO territory? Was it a technical necessity, a provocation, or a strategic signal, in your opinion?
Well, as we've seen recently, Russia is, as some people like to put it, testing NATO. Russia is testing NATO with drones, with planes, and now maybe with submarines. But of course, we will know way more about it because tomorrow starts the session in Brussels, and I'm a few hours from leaving for that session in Brussels of the ministers of defense of NATO countries. Pete Hegseth, the Minister of War, or the Minister of Defense, the head of Pentagon, is right now in Jerusalem. He is also in Knesset with the President Trump and with the American team. But tonight he is leaving for Brussels, and tomorrow and after tomorrow will be the 2 days of sessions in Brussels of the NATO Defense Ministers Summit. And we'll definitely know more, because right now we are seeing those provocations, or as some people like to call it, testing of NATO airspace, and right now of NATO waters. And of course, for the Russian side, this is an ongoing, and I believe, to my mind, this is actually an ongoing operation. We can call it a war. We can call it a special military operation, as Russia likes to call their wars. But this is an ongoing, actually hybrid conflict, hybrid tensions that are already ongoing. So in the air, we've seen that in the air, and now in the waters. We still don't know if it's a technical difficulty that the submarine encountered. Of course, as the same with the planes, the Russian side is, as they said, that there were no Russian planes in Estonia's air, or any drones that were flown around airports in Germany and other countries and Denmark, that those were not Russian drones, or the drones in Poland were not Russian drones, as Russia has been saying. The same with the submarine. Of course, they're saying that's a technical difficulty. It needed to resurface right there and then, but it all looks like a test for NATO, or rather, as I would put it, an ongoing hybrid warfare, or an ongoing hybrid operation, whatever we call it. But it is ongoing in the air, on the ground, and now also in the waters.
Alexandra, not only drones or planes, but also little green men. Because Estonia temporarily closes border crossing with Russia due to increased military activity.
Yes, also that. And with Lithuania, some peoples that are leaving on the border with Belarus, they have to move move further westward into Lithuanian territory because of Russia's activity and because of the military testing, let's say, from the part of NATO that has to be done because of that potential threat.
Alexandra, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for your insights. I need to say that with us was political analyst, European Leadership Network UK member Alexandra Filippenko. Alexandra, glad to see you and wish you all the best. See you.
Thank you very much. See you soon.